Welcome to Papa's Workshop. I hope everybody has a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. And to be able to celebrate the Memorial Day weekend, I decided to be able to engrave this cup and be able to put this logo on this. Now, while I was designing this and setting this up, I also decided to go ahead and add the Army logo to the other side of the cup. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to be able to set this up to engrave either one image, or if you want to do both images, how to do that in one operation. Can't wait to get started. Having this chuck assembly is absolutely amazing, but the handle is the problem. And if you just tighten this down, you're going to see that the handle is going to hit and it's not going to work. Well, this chuck has the ability just to flip this around and mount it on the other side. It's only 2 screws. So I'm going to take these 2 screws out and I'm going to turn this rotary chuck around and mount it back into the same holes. And that creates basically a whole nother tool. And this gives you the opportunity to be able to easily engrave with a cup that has a handle on it. And I absolutely love this feature. So let me just go ahead and flip this around now, and I'm going to show you how to set it up. Literally, this is so easy. All you need to do, once you take the screws out, is turn the chuck assembly around and mount it right back to the base plate exactly the way that it was mounted before, except the chuck is facing the opposite direction. And of course, you're using the same 2 screws in the same 2 holes. This is a brilliant design and it works extremely well. So once you have these screws tightened, you in essence have a new rotary roller with the chuck face in the opposite direction, and you're ready to be able to set this up. Now the setup itself is actually dependent on the cup that you're using. Now in my case, I needed to be able to put a 3/4 inch piece of plywood down underneath this rotary to be able to have the clearance necessary for this handle to be able to fully rotate. Once you know that the handle is free to be able to rotate in a full 360 degrees turn, that's the first step. Now the next step is actually get this assembly positioned underneath the laser itself. The first thing that I like to be able to do is set the Z height, because this is going to require perhaps some other shims and material underneath this rotary. With that done, then I can actually slide this left, right, forward, backwards to be able to get it in position. You also noticed in this case I had to raise up the laser just a little bit higher. The paint cans weren't quite high enough, and I needed to raise that up another 3/4 inch. A weight is also necessary to be able to put on this rotary roller. That base plate is not heavy enough to be able to support that cup extended out this far. So just grab a weight and put it down and you're set. Now this cup is actually tapered, and you need to be able to make sure that you raise this up until it's level. In the kit that comes with the rotary roller, it comes with this level, and that's a convenient item to have to be able to make sure that it's level. And you can see that I had to add another piece of plywood and a couple of shims to get that completely level. The last step is to make sure that the rotary roller is parallel to the gantry. Easiest way is just use a square, and you can just pull the gantry right up to it until it touches. Make any small adjustment that you need to be able to have it perfectly square and parallel to that rotary roller. With that being done, the setup is actually finished. You're ready to be able to engrave. The next step though is the computer work. Let's head over to the computer and get our graphics set up to be able to engrave. In my search to find the perfect logo to be able to put on this cup, I went to the Google search and I found several different possibilities. And this was one of those 4 that I had picked. And when I brought this in and I did the trace bitmap, I was thinking, wow, this may actually work. But actually, once I hit OK and pull that in, you're going to see that the letters really aren't very clear and sharp. And it would take a lot of work to be able to get this ready to be able to engrave. And unfortunately, that's really beyond the scope of this particular video. because the goal of this one is actually showing you how to be able to set up the rotary to be able to use it with the handle. So in this case, what I decided to do is just pull one element. I wanted to pull the flag logo out of the center of it, and then I'll delete the rest of it. And let's see what that looks like. Now when I highlighted this and went to move it, I realized it wasn't grouped. So I'm just going to hit the undo button, put it back, and then I'm just going to go from right to left and highlight just this portion of it, and I'm going to group it together. That way I can move it out of the way. From there, I'm just going to delete everything else. Now then, let's take a look at this flag itself and see what it's going to look like. Because even though it's a small image on this cup, it needs to have some pretty fine detail. And in looking at this, it's quite frankly rather rough. Now as far as these stars, yes, I can clean this up and get the stars looking good. Because I really don't want circles and little blobs for stars. So the first step in this operation, just go ahead and ungroup everything again so I can get rid of all the garbage in the union. To make the star, all you do is just come over to the Polygon Tool and select that. And I can just grab one right now and make it really any size that I want. But at this point, I need to go over to the Shapes property and change it to 5 points because it comes in as 6. And then with the Line tool, I'll just connect the different points and be able to create the star. Now I've shown this before, but it's been quite some time, and I felt it important to be able to show this again, because in the event that you need to modify a flag and be able to put some nice looking stars in it, this is the easiest way that I know to be able to do it. At this point, I can go ahead and highlight everything, and when you do that, you can see that the star is actually highlighted and the polygon around it is not. So I can literally take the star, slide it out of the way, and then be able to delete this. This is really guidelines, because this is the portion that I want, the actual star. But I don't want the lines in the center. So let's head over to the Offset tool. I'll select that, and then I'll just change this to a very small measurement, about 0.01 or 0.001, just virtually nothing. And then eliminate the original star, and I'm left just with the offset portion. And that gives me exactly what I want. The next step is just to be able to go ahead and get this sized correctly. And you can see that's way too large. So I'm just going to reduce this down to be able to get it about the size of the little circle, oval, and the little glob that they're showing as a star. With the size correct, I'll just hit Control D to duplicate it, and from there I'm just going to replace the star. Now the only thing I really need to do is build one row, because from there I can copy the entire row and drop it right into position. So I'm going to take just a moment to do that, and I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's finished. Now I have the first row done. And for this first row that I'm going to drop into position, I need 4 of the stars. So I'm going to highlight all 4 of them, and then just be able to slide those after hitting duplicate and bring them right down, drop them in position. And that's just how easy it is to be able to create a row of stars. Now you don't have to click each star individually. You can drag from right to left and highlight the stars all at once, and then just go ahead with the Control D to duplicate, of course, and drop the next row down in place. And I'm going to repeat this process till all my little circle blobs are out of there and I have stars in place. So here is the last row of stars going in position, and the union actually looks pretty good, and I like that. The original star I'm just cutting, getting out of the picture. I don't need it. But as I look at everything else, I'd like to actually put a different helicopter silhouette in there. And this is, again, getting way beyond the scope of this particular video. So I think what I'm going to actually do is save this flag and this logo for another day, and I'm going to use something different. But all in all, I hope that you found it useful on how to create the star and be able to put them into the union to make a much, much better, cleaner looking union. So I went ahead and put that into my art library, and I brought this flag back out into the workspace. And I'm going to use this one to be able to create the logo to put onto the cup. Now I want to put the word veteran underneath this flag. And to do that, I'm just going to the text selection and type out the word veteran. I do have this set for bold. Now I do want the word larger. And one of the ways you can do that is just come up to this selection right here and you can space the letters out. In addition to that, I want it centered and I'm going to make it a little bit larger. So it's going to be a little bit more pronounced. So the logo itself now is ready to be able to engrave, but certainly we're not quite ready to be able to put this on the cup. There's a couple more steps that we need to be able to do. Now first thing, I want to take a look at the cup itself. We need to be able to measure the diameter of this cup so that we can get the circumference, and we also need to see the size of the logo that we want to be able to put on here. So when I measure this, the diameter is actually roughly 4/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that into the computer. And that information will tell me the circumference. I don't need to actually calculate this out. The computer will do it for me. So now with the circumference, it's actually 10.99557. So I'm going to go ahead now and use that and set up a rectangle because I want to make sure and calibrate the rotary roller to make sure that it's rolling exactly that distance. Now this takes just a little bit of time to be able to set up, but once you do this a couple of times, this process goes very easy. The rectangle that I'm setting up is going to be 0.1 of an inch wide and the 10.99557 in the height. And that will give me, think of it this way, it's like a piece of paper that will wrap completely around the cup itself. The other information that we need is to get the actual size of the logo. Now I take this ruler and I can just work with it and see what's visually pleasing to the eye. There's really no magic number for this. But once I get the measurement that I like, I can go ahead on the logo itself and get it sized correctly. The last measurement that I need is I want to know from the top edge of the cup down to the beginning of the logo itself. And I usually make that somewhere between a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, depending on the logo. So once you have all this information, we're ready to be able to test everything out and start engraving. That's the fun part. The first step though is I want to make sure that when I want to rotate 1 full revolution, it actually turns 1 full revolution. Rather than putting tape around the cup and having to deal with the handle being in the way, I went ahead and used this method. I just taped an old utility blade to the top of the chuck. I have a pencil mark right there at the edge of the point right on the chuck, and then we'll be able to run this job. Utilizing that rectangle that I created in the computer and the logo of course on a separate layer turned off, I'm testing to see just how far this will go with that one rotation on the 10.99557. So now it's going back and I can note exactly where it is. From there I'll make some small adjustments in the computer until I get this exactly correct. So there's our start point and there's where it ended. So it did not come the full circle. So I need to add roughly about 10%. So I'll come back up to the tools menu, select that, down to the rotary setup, and right here on the millimeters per rotation, I want to go ahead and change that, and I'm going to type in 1600. And then we're going to run it again. I dropped it down to 1580. There's our point. That is dead on perfect. So we have the millimeters per revolution now with this cup on here. So that will be good. So now we're going to set this up so that we can frame the actual image I'm going to put a piece of tape over this, and we're going to test and make sure that it is going to engrave in the correct orientation. Just going to put that lightly on there. There we go. Now I'm going to set this up and frame just the image. You'll also notice when I did this test, I had my start point at the top left-hand corner. And that way I had a definite beginning and end point where I had the chucks actually set. And that was important. Now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and change the size of this now. And I want to change it to the size of this flag over here. Now you notice already when I have this in here, it's already flipped in this orientation. So now I'm going to hit start. And let's see here. So that makes sure that everything is on the tape right now. So that's good, but I want to move this over about 1/4 of an inch. And then I want to run that again because I want this about 3/4 of an inch from the top. We'll move this a little bit more to right about there. And that brings it down to right there. That looks pretty good. So we now know that the image is going to engrave in that area. What we don't know is it oriented correctly. Last thing I'm going to do is highlight this word veterans. I'm going to put this on a separate layer, and I'm just going to use the green layer for right now. And we're going to make this as a line. Okay, now that I have just a veteran, I want to be able to turn off all the other layers. And we're going to run the word veterans at a very low power and see if we can check out and make sure that this is going to engrave in the proper direction. So we're just going to highlight this for a minute. We're going to run this at about, let's say 100 inches per minute. And we're going to put this down to about 20% power. So with these other ones off, this is the only one on. This is the only thing that's going to engrave. We'll be able to verify that that is going to be correct. So now I went ahead and hit start, and it's actually engraving the word veterans. Now this is very, very light, and I'm noticing that you're not able to see that in the camera. So we're going to go ahead and make a change. So if I look at this really close, I can see the actual word veterans, and it's exactly the way it looks in the computer. It's mirrored. So I need to be able to change that and put it where it is corrected. I'm going to try one more time and use the fill setting so that you can see this in the camera. And I'm just going to do 1 or 2 letters and stop it. Now I wanted you to be able to see this, and yes, you can now see this in the camera where the letters are running backwards. Normally you wouldn't do this, but I wanted to have it where you could see it. At this point I went ahead and mirrored it in the computer, so now I just need to get this tape off of it and we're ready to engrave. Now this actually seems like it's a long process, but it actually went very, very quickly to be able to do this. And I've tried to give a lot of detail to show you exactly what you need to be able to do on this whole thing, and if you run into problems, how to be able to solve them. And at this point, we just hit start, and we can sit back and watch all of our work turn into a beautiful engraving. And it's worth taking the extra few minutes necessary to make sure that everything is set up correctly. Don't assume anything, or chances are you'll mess up a cup. And I really don't like doing that. So take your time, go through all of the different steps, and you'll turn out some beautiful engravings on these cups. Okay, this one is finished, and I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and cut this one. And I have decided to go ahead and use another one on the other side. And I think I'm going to use this right here. We're going to add that to the project. And let's go ahead and size this down. Now we have this one over here. And I'm going to change colors so that you can see it. We're going to put it on the frame. Now that fits in there just right. Let's go ahead and center this. We'll bullseye that. And that looks real good. So I'm going to go ahead and engrave this now on the other side of the cup. Now this was kind of an afterthought. I was really only going to do this on one side. But I've decided now to go ahead and rotate this around and put the Army logo on the other side. And in a minute, what I'm going to do is show you how to do this all at one time, so you don't have to do a second engraving. I have a couple little marks over here to be able to have everything level. So at this point, I'm going to double check the settings, and I'm ready to be able to engrave this. Now these settings did not change, but if you wanted to double check, you could come back to the library and the etching fill, assign that to the layer, and you see it's still the 20 inches per minute, 60% power, and that's what it's going to be. This line right here is a toolpath line, so there's no output on that. We already know that this is the correct size. So we're just going to go ahead and hit engrave and get started and engrave this onto the cup. Okay, it's all done, so let's take a look at it now. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it from the chuck, and I can just easily release it, and that is absolutely fantastic. Dead centered, exactly the way we want it. We have the other logo on the other side. Doesn't get much better than that. The only thing we need to do now is go ahead and clean up and get all of the paint off of this, and to do that I'll use the lacquer thinner. Now with the paper towel and the lacquer thinner, this paint comes off very, very easily. So I'm just going to soak the paper towel and then just rub it all over the cup, and you'll see that paint just start to peel off. Now it doesn't hurt the cup at all, and that paint just comes right off of it, and you can see how that is working. You'll probably need a couple of paper towels to be able to do this, because you're going to get a lot of paint all over that towel and have it saturated. But after just a couple of minutes of cleaning, this cup is going to be paint free. Now remember, you have to be able to clean inside of the cup also, because more than likely you had a little bit of overspray there that went inside the cup. So make sure you thoroughly clean it. Okay, after cleaning this up with the lacquer thinner, this is the final result, and I think this looked real good. Now the original plan was just to do it on the one side, but while we're going through this video, I decided to go ahead and put an additional logo on the opposite side. Now this could have been done all in one step, and I want to take just a moment and show you how easy it is to be able to set this same exact setup so that it would all engrave at the same time. I want to take the opportunity just to show you how easy it is would be to be able to engrave this cup with both sides at the same time, and it all lies right here with this framing. So I'm going to just come from right to left, highlight just this single item, and I'm going to unlock this. We've already got the width at the 1.7836, and that's perfectly fine. But I want to change this back to the circumference, and the circumference was 10.99557. So there it is. I'm going to back this out so that you can see it. So this is the center point right here. And that's very important to be able to keep that. And that's this center origin right down here. You want to keep that in place. The next thing you need to be able to do is find out where the two sides are. The easiest way to do this is just take this size right here, the 10.99557, and it rounded up to 9956, and that's fine. But divide that by 4. When you get that divided by 4, you're going to be able to have a brand new rectangle that you can create. And when you divide it by 4, it's 2.748. So I'm going to put this on the black layer for the moment. And that is the line. That's good. We're going to come back to the selection tool. And this needs to be my 2.748. Now, I want to be able to, whoops, didn't mean to do that. So let's take this and we're going to slide it right over here. And that's going to drop into there. And I also want to hit Control D and be able to slide that right down to this point. Right there, and drop that in. Now, this is the left and right side of the cup. If this is the cup right here, going all the way around, the center point would be right here. These two lines that you're seeing right here, one line would be through here, the other line would be through here. And you can see that if this opened up. So all I really need to be able to do now is to take this image, and I'm going to go from left to right because I want to highlight this only, and I can bring it right down here and have it snap in to that spot. And that's it. Now let's take my other image. Let's go back to my art library. I didn't save that one, but we'll just put this one in right now. And we're going to go ahead and put this on the blue layer. We're going to rotate it to -90 degrees. And I'm just going to bring it down to the correct size. And then I can just slide this right down and have it lock into place. And just like that, you'll see it snap in. And that takes care of it. That is ready to be able to engrave. Now the important thing is, remember, this is where your handle is. Your handle is going to be at this point, and if that folded around, the other portion of the handle is going to be right there. So you need to make sure that when you set this up, you set this up where this is your center point, and this can rotate in this correction to be able to do the engraving. And that's really all there is to it. Just have that one box, divide it into the fourth, and you've got it. So in hindsight, if I had thought about putting this logo on there at the beginning of this video, I would have set it up this way to be able to engrave it. Now the other thing we need to be able to do, if I wanted to be able to reduce this down even further, put the word veteran back in there. That snaps right into position. I can still type the word veteran right underneath and have it. So let's do that just to be able to show you. We'll come over here to my text, type in the word veterans, and we will get out of that, rotate this to -90 degrees, and then I can take this and slide it right up into that point right there. It's inside my box that I have, it's centered, and I would be ready to engrave. It's just that simple, and I'd be able to do this whole operation with one time rather than have two setups. So it's just that easy. It's not a complicated process. Another thing to be able to consider, let's say you didn't want that. You changed your mind and did not want this logo. All you need to do is just be able to highlight it Well, let's just slide that one out of the way. Now let's go down and let's just pick another one. We'll take that one and drop it in. We'll put this on the blue layer for now, just to be able to keep it simple. We'll rotate this the same way to minus 90 degrees. And let's slide that up into this position. And I want this to be 1.78. There we go. Then we can zoom, we could zoom in there and we could see that that would fit just fine. And you could do the tethered flag with the veteran on there. You've got a little silhouette of a helicopter and the soldiers. So that's another way that you could do it. It's just that easy using the art library to be able to drop in the different items. And again, if you don't like it, or if you want to do multiple cups, you can just cut that and get it out of the way. And let's see here. Let's see what happens if I bring this one in. If I bring this one in, let's make sure that it's grouped. Let's size this down. Now this is a circle, so we'll put this down to the 1.78. We'll rotate this minus 90 degrees. Put it on the blue layer. And just slide that right up in there until it locks. You see it snap in position, and you're ready to engrave. It doesn't get a whole lot simpler than that. That is not bad. And that would get both sides of the cup in one pass. I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for watching this video today, and I hope you was able to pick up a few tips along the way on being able to engrave something like this with this handle. It's really not that hard if you just take the time and be able to set it up. At the end of the video, I took the opportunity to be able to show you how to be able to do this operation in one step rather than the way I showed you in this one, where I did this logo and then I set up the whole operation again to do this logo. And that was really my fault, because I had actually only planned to do just the one side. And I felt that this was a real good opportunity to be able to show you how to do both. So again, I want to thank everybody for watching the video today. And if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. And while you're there, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down below and the little bell notification next to it. Now, this is Memorial Day weekend, and I hope that everybody takes the opportunity to think and remember a veteran who helped to be able to serve this country and to defend this country. Because without the military, and quite frankly, without our first responders, this would not be a real pleasant place to live. We need our first responders, and we need our veterans to be able to protect and serve and be able to preserve our way of life. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next video that I do, and I can't wait. Until next time, bye-bye.